Hi, I'm Julien Baker,
I'm Torres.
and you're listening to the LSQ podcast.
Welcome to Season 8 of the LSQ podcast. Yeah, buddy. Thank you for pressing play. I'm Jenny LSQ, and I'm thrilled to begin this season with the following interview with Julien Baker and Torres, two artists whose music, on their own, I've admired for years. Julien as a solo performer and a member of the band boygenius, and Torres, which is the musical moniker of the singer-songwriter and my friend, Mackenzie Scott. Last year, Julien and Torres revealed that they were collaborating on a country project, and they shared an amazing debut single, Sugar in the Tank, that I fell in love with instantly. And there's an album coming, and it's so good. The album, Send a Prayer My Way, will be out April 18th via Matador Records. You can pre-order and pre-save it now at julienbakerandtorres.com. I got together over Zoom with Julien and Mackenzie the day before the album was announced to talk about what inspired the collaboration and also about their respective childhoods growing up in the South, surrounded by country music and country music culture, and how their relationship with the genre has evolved over the years and how it ended up informing the album. Let's get it going. How y'all feeling by the time people have heard this? The announcement of the album will have happened. So this is something you've had in your pockets for a minute now, right?
Too long.
It is way too long.
Not too long, but like long enough. Definitely long enough. But I'm excited.
So tell me about speaking of inceptions, as we were earlier before we started officially, what was the inception of this project?
Mackenzie sent me a text that was like, want to make a country record?
Yeah, it was a little bit out of what some might call nowhere. um, but it wasn't out of nowhere for me. I mean, it wasn't meant to be a joke. What it was a proposition that I sort of framed as a kind of joke in case Julien rejected me. So I sent Julien a text and I was like, yo, we should make a country record, right? Wouldn't that be something?
And I was like, bet.
Yeah, I think you literally said
down
bet.
guy. I said bet.
I think you were just like, fuck yeah, down, something like that.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Well, because it was quarantine. And I was like, yeah, let's go.
But what Mackenzie, what made you tell me more about the germination of that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to just make a country album, like whatever you think of when someone says country. I mean, everyone kind of has something different they think of when they think of country music, but I feel like I've been dancing around making a country record for like over 10 years now. And I have little reference points and a little wink and a nod to the idea within the songs, but it's always kind of like buried that, I don't even know what aspects of it I think are a nod to country music, but I think that I've sort of put little Easter eggs in the music since the beginning. And I wanted to make a country record. And then I just had the idea alongside that, like, I don't know. I feel like I need to collaborate with somebody. I've never really collaborated. I've never collaborated on writing anything or just like, usually something is conceived like in my basement and then I go to a location and I make the thing and sometimes I have bandmates come and sometimes I don't, but I wanted to collaborate with somebody and I don't know, Julien and I had just been in touch over the years because we like what the other person does and it all seems very random, but it wasn't.
And Julien had the idea of making like a quote unquote country album, like had that occurred to you as a thing to do at some point?
A little bit, like, I don't know, because I had a couple of songs that I was like, I think I had been working on Sugar in the Tank, and I was like, oh, this is a perfect chance to show this to someone. But I don't know, like I went to MTSU for school, and I was in a different department than this. I was in the like tech department, but I think the idea was it was like a fast track to being like a writer in the like quasi Tin Pan Alley of modern music row Kicks 106 top 40 country. So that kind of like non-performance, like writing for publishing only was on my world as sort of like a like when athletes get into coaching or something, like that just something more stable and like a little bit more behind the scenes. And I had a couple of friends who like wrote songs for pitch, and I was like, damn, that sounds exhausting, but it also feels like it affords you a level of like, I don't know, I can just write this like silly song. And also, I think before we started this project, my idea of doing an experiment, like doing my personal experiment with writing country music was like, or like a more judgmental pastiche and being like, well, this is dumb and like anybody could write this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, for, coming out of like punk and hardcore and like weird, obtuse indie music for a long time when I was a kid, when I was like deep embedded in the milieu of being surrounded by country music, I was like, oh, I hate this. It's really vapid and I don't like it. And then I don't know, I guess as my appreciation for like pop grew throughout my life, and I was just perpetually living in Nashville and hanging out with players there, surrounded by people who were from that world. I was like, yeah, maybe this would be a good change of pace to like give myself an artistic assignment. But I imagined it when I first started writing by myself, or like if I had ever done that, as something a little bit more removed. And I don't know, when you hit me up like, let's make a country record, I was like, yeah, hell yeah. It opened up this curiosity, I think, in like the tradition of country music. And yeah, so I guess I had never considered like shifting my own whatever artistic persona or like taking a detour into that genre land in my own personal career. And I was like, why not? It'd be really fun to like, also something Mackenzie, I think you do well is like establishing a persona, which isn't even like deliberate, or it's not even like you're doing Prince. It's like I think some weird misinformation got to me when I was a kid that you had to like fully represent, there had to be like no separation between the artist as a person and the artist as they appear and like represent themselves in their work. And I think it was like throughout watching your career, you were having fun with like how you like the costumes and music videos and the different like sonic pursuits you would have on different like the personalities of different records. And I was trying to make something that was like utterly true and real to myself. And that's just like so much more expansive and various than I was allowing it to be. I was like, I'm trying to pick a lane and stand by my conviction of who and what I am and what I listen to, and which I guess is just like, I don't know, weird beat down hardcore music. But it's been fun to like experience stepping into another world with someone else.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. I mean, I definitely am intrigued about the topic of, yeah, like persona or creative persona, and the idea that either you have one or you don't have one, as opposed to, I don't know, from my view, it's like everyone has one. The mask becomes the face. I is the expression that I love for it. Is just like whoever you think you are when you realize you need to do things a little bit differently for your public image or your public, the stuff that people can have versus the stuff that you're like, you can't have that, that's not part of the deal, I'm putting that behind the mask or something. That's, I feel like, the moment when a persona comes into play. But also there's the benefits of like knowing that persona is part of a creative exercise, whether you have an audience or not, that it's like, it's not you and it's not all of you, it can't be all of you, it's a creation of you, it's your creation. It's sort of like lives outside of you in this way that it has to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to contain your whole identity. I think that's something that I like envied is like trying to pick some amalgamation or like distilled from myself, like what the most true version of myself was, and then be that all the time. And I think I was watching your performances and being like, I don't know, this is a like not this, but like maybe tomorrow I'm the type of guy who wears cargo pants and I'm not that type of guy, or like wears a beret or some shit. You know what I mean? Like I can be in a mood in a or a mode of expression that doesn't have to like pertain to my entire identity.
Yeah. Identity is kind of a funny thing. I used to think when I was younger that I had one. I don't know that I have an identity. The older I get, the more I'm kind of like, isn't everything a choice? But also, like, yeah, speaking for myself, every character, if you will, that I've played, every sort of experiment or investigation of a certain kind of performer in a certain kind of world that I've done has been a facet of me, like a super animated, magnified, amplified facet of me, and I see myself as all of it and none of it. So as it pertains to the country record, it's kind of like in my head I've always been that country guy. Like I've actually always been just like I've always been a country guy.
Yeah, it's just like the cargo pants analogy. It's just like, what if you actually love cargo pants and you're just not letting yourself love them because you have some baggage about fucking cargo pants? Turns out it's awesome to have a lot of pockets. You know what I'm saying?
It turns out.
Yeah. Or like I constantly at all times have cargo pants guy within me that I don't have to be like utilizing at all times for it to be a legitimate thing. I don't know, but
There it is.
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, yeah. So with country music, let's go back even further because also I want to spend some time having each of you talk a bit about life long ago before you ever had heard of a Mackenzie Scott or a Julien Baker. And when I say that, I mean even having heard of yourself as an artist, as a kid. What do you remember a two-part question being your earliest associations with country music, like when you were a little kid and exposed to it? Because growing up in the South, I feel like, as a New Yorker, it's just like you don't hear country music unless you go to the country music channel or something like that. It's like you're not exposed. But what do you remember about your earliest experiences with country music? And also, when did you start just gravitating toward music as being a special thing to you?
The first country music I remember hearing was riding around in the car with my brother and sister when they were first driving. So my brother and sister are like 9 and 11 years older than me, respectively. And so I was around 5, when they started taking me around in their cars. And the only music I had been exposed to at that point was church music, like, hymns and country music that was on the radio at the time. So it was like Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, it was the Chicks, it was Shania Twain. That was formative for me. And that those were honestly the first songs that I can remember loving just in general in my life.
Yeah, so that felt like your music when you first heard it.
It did. Very much so. But like,
Yeah.
like with the little bit of pop, the pop leaning, very like melodic stuff.
Would you go buy a record or something? Would you buy the Shania record or the Chicks record or anything like that? Or was it just sort of like, yeah, when you got older, was
When
that
I
so that
got a little bit older and I could get CDs, yeah, my CDs.
gotta get my
Your
CDs?
binder full of CDs.
Oh my God, the
Yes,
binder.
dude, I still have it.
Hearing you talk about it is reminding me of like when like before I had any agency, because I think I was in like fifth or sixth grade, like junior high, before I felt like I had individual taste outside of like what my parents or like before I realized like there's a bunch of different music I don't know about. It's not just like there's folk songs that every single person knows. It's just that my family always plays the same songs. But I remember my mom finding out because she would play it in the car that I was into Shania Twain and she bought me the Up double CD with the green CD and the red CD. And it was like all the same songs, but green was like country production. And then red was like the pop production with like
No.
more sampled drums and like the lap steel muted and maybe like a little weird synth. Like it was insane. I couldn't tell the difference between them at first. And then I was like looking at it was like pop version, country version. But I used to straight up that was like way earlier than because I always think of my first like musical significant music memories as being like, oh, I saw Green Day on VH1 when I was in like the fifth grade and then I knew I liked rock music. But this is like earlier. This is like pre-kindergarten when I was home with my mom all day. And I would fucking wear that shit out. Like I Knew every word, like to like as an album. And also, yeah, there is something I like thinking about you riding around with your siblings. Like I didn't necessarily have that. I think also the fact that I didn't have brothers and sisters showing me the stuff dated my understanding of country music. So it's like a lot of the country music I kept dear was like George Jones, Merle Haggard, like old 70s stuff like that. That was like my parent or that my grandma would like put on 45s when we would go visit. And that's like the only understanding of country music I had until I would like shifted into like being in control of the music that I listened to. And then I didn't really know anything until I started working at that like Logan Steakhouse. I was like a peanut sweeper. That was what, honestly, I swear to God, that's probably like half of my country music, pop country music awareness is just because I worked at this place. It was like Texas Roadhouse or like Logan's, but it was a regional chain called Colton's. And I worked there, with like taxidermy and like signed pictures of Dale Earnhardt Jr. And like you can crack the peanuts on the floor and it's like chicken fried steak, like home cooking type stuff. But I worked there so much because I wanted money. And I was always up in the place, like rolling everywhere and listening to whatever, Blake Shelton.
You were the peanut sweeper was the official job.
No, that wasn't the official
Okay.
job. My,
Okay.
no.
So there's so many people cracking peanuts so much. We need one team member just for the sweeping of the peanuts.
No, it was that experience in my life. I understand that it wasn't made for TV, but that movie Waiting that was like syndicated on being like, that is how it is. Like everybody being like, we have to sing birthdays, and everybody in the back is like, fuck, like I fucking hate birthdays. But also, for what it was worth, it was like my manager was like, she saved up all her PTO to like go to Talladega, NASCAR stuff. It was just really working class, like the ideas were reflected in the like modern country ideal. Real country girl or like real country boy was like the people I worked with, but also were like losing their teeth from like smoking Percocet off foil and stuff. It's just like really weird dystopian. I don't know. It was a weird time.
So for both of you, it was like that was the prevailing culture around you as a little kid, was that most people were into pop country music and you were sort of into it as a little kid, but then kind of felt like, oh no, now I've found my music, which is something different from that, and like sort of a divide kind of formed a little bit.
Absolutely. Like everybody listened to country music, and then the moment I discovered, I'm not going to say the moment I discovered Britney Spears. No,
Thank
but
you.
when I
Thank you for that.
it was me. Everyone listened to that too. But when I got a little older than that, when I would say like middle school is when I sort of started noticing that my taste, what I was finding on ye old iTunes was it was different than what those around me were listening to. Also different than what JB was listening to.
And so at that point, whether it was Britney Spears for you, Mackenzie, or Green Day for you, Julian, was there an inkling yet of your own musicality in the mix or starting to enter the equation when you thought about what music you liked, that you might be musical as well?
I mean, what 8-year-old, isn't standing in front of the the mirror like thinking that they're
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake? Yeah, like.
I was bouncing on the couch to up with a hairbrush for sure. But also, I think I take things like that for granted. And I know you and I probably had that experience, but I wonder if there's not kids. I don't know. That was like, it does feel like every kid in my neighborhood was like singing Rascal Flatts at sleepovers. You know what I mean? Whether or not they ended up becoming like ICU nurses or like librarians or I don't know, TV producers. Like I ended up becoming a musician and I was participating in that, but also everybody was. I don't know. I also think something I appreciate about country music, and I wonder if you feel the same, Mackenzie, is like the foregone conclusion or like this attitude that there's an innate musicality in like pretty much everyone. Like, okay, this is gonna be so dumb. No, it's not dumb. It's not dumb. It's literally a part of culture that's not even a counterculture. My ass will sit around like talking about Screamo 7 inches and be like, this is so serious. And then something that millions of people go to a stadium to listen to. I'm like, but like the Florida Georgia Line song where he's like, I don't know, painting the picture of like people in a small town like mudding for fun and having like a tailgate party and starting a fire and then playing guitar with each other. I'm like, yeah, that's all my redneck cousin. Everybody plays enough guitar to play radio songs and sing them with people. Like that is a viable pastime that no one's embarrassed of as an adult, like getting together at family reunions and adults being like, yeah, let's sing a song. It just seems kind of like weird and not even kitsch, but like it seems like old school or something.
I feel like though there is and I guess it's a confirmation bias because I'm not interviewing people on this show who didn't decide to be a professional recording artist, so,
Fair.
but talking to people who did end up doing that, there's always this point where something really set in, something started to kind of take hold of the person that is something different than the folks who might still whip out a guitar at a family gathering or do karaoke like their life depends on it. And, where you start to see yourself as this is something you must do. This is something that you are. This is the only thing that you could imagine doing. It's the only thing you actually care about. When for each of you would that have started to be the vibe?
I saw, I don't know if I want to tell you this. I saw the movie The Phantom of the Opera when I was 14.
Let's go.
I, I don't, I don't know that I want this to be the story, but it is the story.
Too late.
It's the story.
Too late. Yeah. Be honest. Speak your truth.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest. I saw The Phantom of the Opera in the theater when I was 14, in the movie theater, like the movie, not the play, not even the play, but the movie. The movie rocked my world. It turned me upside fucking down. There was just something about that music. I wanted to sing it. Like I didn't sing until I saw that movie. I got the soundtrack, I got the CD, I wore it out. I could not stop singing that music. And I was that annoying musical theater kid. I'm sure it's very surprising to both of you. I was that annoying, really obnoxious musical theater kid for like 3 or 4 years, and even thought that I might pursue musical theater potentially. The idea was maybe Broadway. I know now that I don't have the voice for that, but at the time that was like my dream.
Did it feel like a relief to have found that? Like when you realize like I love this shit, I can't get enough of it. Did it feel like you had tapped into something therapeutic?
It did. It was very exciting, but I was also like mortified about the idea of actually having to find a way like to do that. You know what I mean? Like I was in Macon, Georgia, so no one that I had ever met had even come close to being an entertainer or a, musician or anything of that kind. So, I mean, it was really scary to think like, oh, if I actually want to pursue this as I get older, I'm going to have to find out how to get my foot in the door. And I have no idea how to do that. But yeah, exciting, sure.
How did that kind of evolve into you discovering that you could write your own songs?
I was doing musical theater just with my school. And then I shortly after started finger picking on the guitar, just like for myself. I got some lessons, but it wasn't, for the most part, it was like a very self taught in my free time kind of thing. And I had always written poems. It's kind of like the classic, I've always written poems and I just put some music on them, that kind of thing. The early songs were bad. They were really bad.
Were you emulating what musical style were you emulating?
It was everything. I mean, it was country for the most part, but with a little bit of that, like, a little bit of John Mayer.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Like a little bit of that, like smooth boy. Like,
Yes.
it was not good.
Julian, tell me your hero's journey from that era as well.
My
Your hero's journey from you mentioned sort of a Green Day moment earlier, but yeah, what was your Phantom of the Opera into Shania meets John Mayer evolution?
Man, it was honestly like the age I was when I started dabbling in this music. And weirdly, I feel like there's a certain parallel to like country music, like establishing own legitimacy. Like true country does this type of sh stuff, or like true country people know this fat or know what mudding is or something. And I feel like I had that experience a little bit because the music that I like latched onto, I don't even necessarily think I was like, I have to be a performer. I was like, I feel that way. I feel how you feel. Like, I don't know, I saw Green Day on VH1 and somebody was like, I disagree with what the government and the United States is doing. That really is something important. I got radicalized by the song Holiday by Green Day. But I will say, like the fact that they were on a major cable outlet, I didn't know Dookie at that time. I found it later. I didn't know Warning or like International Super Hits. I didn't know they were like a long-standing Bay Area punk band. I was just like, oh, these people are saying something that's like righteous and defiant and angry, and they're pointing out a disconnect between how we're told it is and how it really is. And I don't know what adolescent, especially one with any sort of like home drama or whatever, like what adolescent doesn't that sentiment appeal to? And then it was just more like people finding, like it's like okay, like Green Day, Fall Out Boy. So there's Green Day and Fall Out Boy t-shirts at Hot Topic, or like, so what are the other bands that are on the t-shirts? Underoath or like whatever, Circus Survive. And then I was like, oh shit, these people are or like Norma Jean. I remember the first time I heard a Norma Jean song, I was like, this is scary and I like it. I was like, there's no singing. It's only screaming. He's so mad. And I was like, it's scary, but kind of like kids do with scary movies, like proving that you can withstand and that you like are brave enough to be up for the real horrible visceral like realities of life. I was like, no, I can listen to this. And then I went to the skate park to see one of those performances and I was like, watching this dude, I think it was Stephen Chamberlain from Underoath, like writhe around on stage, like and like scream. I just never heard someone like unfold their feelings without trying to like put them into a like more intelligible or a more polite form, It was like ugly on purpose. It's like they're not even trying to sing or play guitar well. It's just like intentionally dissonant. And then I was like, that's where I need to be. Because I just liked music and it felt like they're really beautiful, even though I did try to like align myself with the house show punk and hardcore band kids and like prove that I belonged there because every kid in any music is just looking for somewhere to like feel like they've earned their place at and belong in. There's still something like I found a bunch of these old Burnsies that will have like a Rose Funeral, like deathcore song, and then it would be like So Lonesome I Could Cry by Hank Williams, and then it would be like Carnival of the Animals by Saint San. Like, I don't know, I think I felt like once I had agency, I was like at a giant buffet and I was like, oh, there's all these different languages of expression. I need to get versed in this. And then I started playing in a band because I wanted a band because a couple of people around me were like in their own little get-ups, but it was like being in a family or like the closest thing to like a sports team I knew about. So I was like, oh, I need to do that. Like I think if I had been moved by Phantom of the Opera and had aspirations to Broadway, I would have been like not even more cynical, but I would have been more like horrified and frustrated because the thing that moved me was the thing that was like accessible to basic anyone. Like start a local band with the four people who ride your bus. You did it. you're in a band. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like getting on Broadway. I don't think I had really like huge aspirations like that.
Were you writing in your band, or were you, yeah, were you like the core writer in your first band or bands?
Yeah, I was like, well, initially I wanted to play guitar. Like the band, I ended up being in a couple of bands for like a couple months. Like I was playing lead guitar in this kid from my youth group's band, and all I did was play guitar. And we did like he wrote the songs, I did the guitar parts. That's was ideally where I wanted to be because I didn't like singing and I felt unpracticed in singing. And then I was like, I don't know, writing songs by myself in my house and I would like play them around, like hanging out with my friends and stuff. And then I joined a band I was supposed to play guitar for, and our singer quit. And I was like, I'll be the singer. And then every review of all of our shows for like the first year we were a band was, I don't sing loud enough, which I think why now is why I'm like, ah, like really fucking projecting. But yeah, I was like writing stuff. I think it was also nice to like, I don't know, it's like a mirror or something, or like some way to like go inside and make sense of. Like, I think also kids, I don't know, kids are obsessive by nature, but there's always like a little bit of something you're escaping or trying to become or make yourself safe from when you're obsessed with this one. You know, I think about like child prodigies who are like so all they ever do is Rubik's Cube, or all they ever do is they get so good at World of Warcraft or like League of Legends, and then they're like playing for hundreds of thousands of dollars prizes. I'm like, something you were escaping something, you know, but I don't have to throw out that diagnosis for every child, but
Moving radically up to the present from our flashback vibe there, once you connected with each other and were like, yeah, we're going to make a country record, did you feel like you had to go kind of, I don't know, revisit some of the old country that you listened to, or do any kind of like, yeah, kind of like mood boarding or like research or delving into figuring out, what does that mean? What does country music mean to me? What kind of country music are we going to make?
Certainly. I mean, yes, we made playlists. We made a playlist. We talked about it. We sent music videos back and forth, and yeah, established like a baseline. Maybe like a spectrum we would try and reference. At the same time, I listen to a lot of country music at home. My wife Jenna and I are. She's also Southern. She's from Knoxville, Tennessee. So the music choices, for the home family vibes, more often than not end up being country. But what kind of country, you ask? I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, we love all country music. What does country music mean? Does it mean 1970s classic, Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, Willie Nelson? Like, does it mean 80s? We're getting into like pop territory a little bit, but still like holding on to the classic vibe. We get into 90s and it's like full on pop, just like absolutely outrageous, like Goodbye Earl type shit. It's like, what are we making here? That's the question. So yeah, we made a playlist.
And but so, I mean, what kind of stuff? What kind of stuff was on the playlist? And was there any, did you give yourselves any directives? Like, yeah, what were your conversations like amongst the two of you, in terms of like, okay, this is an opportunity to make our kind of country, or to make what's a country record because we say it is, but also because you can tell because it has these, it sounds like country, or it has these tropes of country in terms of the kind of lyric writing or the kind of storytelling. Like, how much of that did you get brainy about and actually discuss versus kind of just starting to write and send stuff to each other and communicate about it through the songs?
I'm trying to think because I feel like, especially in my mind, I was like, I want, I don't know, and maybe it's more interesting this way, but I conceptualized it being like, this is gonna sound like straight up Luke Combs. Like it's gonna be like huge production, like really tight drums, like hi-fi music row pop country. And then it would have been sick. I'll say this
That would have been sick.
as we've been watching, yeah, it's just so interesting. And I don't want to not situate ourselves like in awareness. I feel like this happens with country music like every couple of years, or like people will just latch on to, or it'll happen with like breakbeat stuff making its way into like weird 90s pop, and then people go back to that and are like, now it's hyper pop. But whatever is in the water of like Post Malone making F1 Million and this stuff like this, it's like pop acts engaging with the tradition of country music that is floating around us all in the air. I think I'm happy that I feel like I tried my mightiest to have the ideas that, or not even have the ideas, but have the ideas and be able to execute them, or like write the kinds of riffs that would be in those like Zac Brown band, Luke Combs, big box country. And I don't know. There's some like there's this one song on the record that is just a Songs Ohio lift, 100%. And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is in like what ended up happening instead of me being like, I want to do this and I'm going to execute it well, like an actor with like a dialect coach, was that it's like so grooved, like the particular kind of country that we each engaged with is so grooved into our like our musical accent that it came out anyway. Like I feel like all the guitar playing of mine is like heavy, chunky, like low mid, maybe too much fuzz, like, and the references for that are like Lucero, Memphis country rock, country punks, cowpunks, Uncle Tupelo, Sunvolt, stuff that was maybe even more in the like rockabilly zone that was what I gravitated towards within country. And then the stuff that you brought had the like, I have to work really hard and really deliberately to like put a key change in a song, but I think you do that like switching between fifths or doing like parallel key changes really easily, because that's like in so much of the, it's almost like classic rock chords that were in a bunch of 90s country. And so it's like a little bit more, or a little bit more like, yeah, musical, like theater-y. It's not just like chunking out like the same four punk chords. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit more ambitious melodically and like trying to overlap those things and then just inviting people on. The other thing that was so cool was I know usually you and I both work in a similar way that's like we write the songs, we have a vision for them, we build them from the ground up throughout production, or we make like, we write a drum groove and then put it in a drum machine or have a drummer come play it. But like letting everybody be a player, like old school record making, like me just being like, oh, I have this fiddle player friend that I really like them as a person. They're a good hang and they play fiddle well, and then that changes the tone of like they leave their thumbprint on it. Certainly John, the steel player. It was funny kind of figuring out how much of it was deliberate and then looking back and being like, oh, that's not exactly what I set out to make, but it's maybe a little bit interesting, more interesting, you know?
Yeah, I certainly had aspirations of like getting some big pop songs, country pop songs in there as well, some like radio friendly. Not that that would have been the aim, but just because I actually enjoy when the song is good, I enjoy a song like that. I mean, yeah, aspirationally, I certainly hit some of the marks. Like I think George Strait would have been a big one for me, and I got my like bottom of the bottle sort of George Strait nod, and like I wanted to celebrate like Emmylou Harris, like the like Linda Ronstadt, like
Cinda Williams.
oh my God, Lucinda, of course. The ones that straddled a line a little bit, or like maybe didn't get their flowers when they should have, because it wasn't so much in the pocket of what, of any one particular genre or whatever. Or maybe it was a little too honest for the time or something. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you did anything different lyrically?
I feel like I was a little bit more like I was using a bunch more like double entendres, or being like having like clever, cheeky one-liner type of lyrics than I was trying to like make something that was just like honest in a like, I don't know, in a like formal poetry way. it was a little bit more fun. It was like a more playful space to write in.
The aha aspect of a country song is something that I've always loved. That like, oh, I see what you did because it's this, but then it's also this. It's like it's awesome. Like that's good when it's done well. It's some of the best songwriting that there could be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking when you say that, I'm thinking about Tuesday, about that song from the album, and spoiler alert, but the final lyric about, go suck an egg. It's just you're just like, I didn't think that's where that was gonna end up, but that feels very country to me, as like and something that maybe Mackenzie you wouldn't have done in a Torres song or something, just a straight up song of your own.
Probably not. No, the narrative aspect of the country music format, the verse chorus, like the way that it allows you to tell a full story for me is really exciting because yeah, I didn't necessarily feel like I had to veil anything or like make it, I guess for lack of a better way of saying it, make it sound cool. You get to be a little less cool when you're working in this genre, and I mean that like very lovingly. It's all stripped back, and the lyrics have to be bulletproof, because you're not producing necessarily the songs in such a way that you can get away with anything less than a really rich story.
But this is hence we return to the cargo pants analogy, like they might not be cool, but they sure do get the job done.
Dude,
That's right. That's right. They're functional. Function over fashion. That's the most lesbian thing I've ever heard.
I was gonna say
That's very country.
that is
Yeah.
fucking gay.
But that I'm like all those guys with the guys in the F-150 dualies at the job site with the big leather phone case attached to their light wash jeans. Those guys picked function over fashion, 100%. We're not so different.
You want the phone right there in a handy pouch. You know what I'm saying? It's
Just
like
in case you need to
hands-free vibe instead of like me clutching it like for dear, where I'm just like, why is my hand frozen in a claw position forever? It's because of I'll get like a pain in my forearm that I realize is from holding my phone. Like, you know what I mean? When I'm like, what is that
yes.
neuropathy I'm feeling? I'm just like, oh yeah, it's phone specific neuropathy.
No.
Tendonitis.
I think that brings us to a perfect, I feel like close on cargo pants is a good vibe.
All right. Yeah, let's close on cargo pants.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jen. Good to see you again.
And that brings us to the end of episode 116 of the LSQ podcast. Big ups to Mackenzie and Julien. That conversation was so much fun. JulienBakerandTorres.com is their website. And mine is JennyLSQ.com, which is where you can find other episodes in the series. And of course, they're also on all the podcast platforms. I hope you'll consider subscribing or following or leaving a review or whatever. And if you want to reach me, my email address is lsqpod@gmail.com, and I'm on Instagram @JennyLSQ.